All right, we are live.
Welcome everyone to another Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant. I am Greta Russo and this is Dr. Bryant. Dr. Bryant, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Dr. Nelva Bryant. I'm a veterinarian and I work in the airline industry. I do work with Delta Airlines and I've been on staff with them since 2018, brought on staff to help review and revise the policies of animal transportation. And within that role, I started noticing some things that potentially potentially pet owners need to know and understand preparing their pets for air travel. So I've decided to share information through When Pets Fly. That's my platform to share pet-centric travel education. The information is valid for, as I said, your pet owners and also for our fellow veterinarians, because I also actually give presentations and webinars to the veterinary profession regarding pet travel regulations and what have you. So there's a lot of information that I've learned based upon my role with Delta that I feel will benefit the pet owner, benefit pets in general traveling, but it's geared towards our pet owners and our veterinarians or veterinary professionals. Greta, I'll
Yes.
pause for a second. You are my right hand in everything I do. Please introduce yourself.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Greta Russo and I work with Dr. Bryant at When Pets Fly and this amazing journey in helping educate everyone in information on traveling with animals and making it all about being animal centric. And this has been a fun and wild journey. I think even though When Pets Fly is 4 years old, we've been working 5. Okay. We've been working together for 4 years or 3 years.
4 years.
Okay. Oh my gosh. It's so your baby is 5 years old.
Time flies when you're having fun here. We're enjoying this journey. Definitely enjoying this journey.
Absolutely. And it's the part I love the most, besides learning so much and meeting so many amazing people in this entire process of moving animals by air, is that it's constantly updating. I don't want to say changing as much as updating. And that is great because so much planning and so much is needed in the care and the process and the welfare of animals when they're traveling. And the most important thing is people outside of this don't even know what is involved. And sometimes the people inside of it don't even know. But together we can all learn. And so pointing out the basics at least gets us started with the conversation. And I'm so excited to have our ladies from Pawsitive Pet Health Certificates with us, because you and I have constantly talked about and mentioned that pet health certificates are a must when traveling internationally. And now we'll have the experts here to, dive in even more about it.
So. Yeah, definite. Folks need to understand that you can't just pick up your pet and travel to a new country or even to Hawaii without the appropriate documentation to allow your pet to enter to that destination. So you've got to make sure you do this. If you don't, unfortunately, that country or wherever you're going to can actually deny entry, and require. I mean, worst case scenario, it could be they could be held in quarantine at your expense. They could be required to return to the origin back to the U.S. at your expense, or they can actually even say humane euthanasia. That it's the last resort. They don't want to do it, but that is a possibility that could happen by you not following and complying and ensuring that you have an international health certificate for your pet traveling to whatever, international destination. And again, it's Hawaii. And this could be your pet dog, cat, bird, or whatever. Any animal going to an international destination has to have this international health certificate. So you have to get this done. It's not just a dog or cat thing.
Yeah,
it's trying to make out of that.
Absolutely. The other thing that we both continue to repeat on the show with different guests is that this form must be completed by an accredited veterinarian. That is very important because that is a regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we,
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you said that, Greta, because everyone just thinks maybe that it's the airline. They'll say, "Oh, the airline requires this." Well, the airline does require it because it's a regulation that they have to comply with. I mean, getting to that destination, you have to have all this in order. Almost the same as us. Think about it. If I'm going to go to when I went to Abu Dhabi, I mean, that was my wonderful trip. Um, I went there. I couldn't get there without my passport, right? So I have to have something official. If my
yeah,
passport would have been expired, the airline would not have allowed me to travel. So these are documents that are needed to get to the destination, and the airlines, a lot of them will want to see it and ensure that you have the documentation in your hand before you even travel. Because if you get there, you're going to be upset because again, denied entry, return back to the U.S., quarantining at your expense that you didn't account for, right? You didn't account for that. Or, God forbid, humane euthanasia. We got to make sure we're prepared before going. So we're not even dealing with those potential options. You want to get to that destination and enter that country smoothly.
yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Dr. Bryant, there are for I'm not as immersed as you are, but there is a lot to just picking up and going, let's say, to Paris from the United States
Mm-hmm.
or from Paris to India.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just I'm a, book a flight online and grab a ticket and me and, Fifi are off on our
Yeah.
vacation,
Yeah.
and it's like it can be overwhelming, and the fact that there's not one place that has, or not one person that has everything you need to know, from the idea and concept of me and Fifi going to Paris all the way to once we get there and land in Paris. There's not, I mean, When Pest Fly has a lot of information
Mm-hmm.
to touch on that, but you're like the only person who can tell somebody from the idea to landing what all should happen in between. And if people don't reach out to you, people should definitely reach out to people like Nicole and Mary at
Mm-hmm.
Pawsitive at Health Certificates, because I couldn't even imagine trying to take this process on.
Right.
And there's so much timing in taking, you and your pet to another country, like, because like I'm a planner. So if I'm going to Paris in, let's say, the fall, I would start everything now. But didn't we
Yeah.
talk to someone that was saying you can't get your health certificate filled out until like 10 days before the trip? And it's like, how would I know that? So if I got it done, then now I got to go get it redone. And it's like, there's so
No.
many things.
But you know what you have to realize though, it's more than just a document. The document is the form that you're going to place information as far as, say, if there's some diagnostic tests that need to be done, that information is going to be placed on the health certificate. And guess what? And I say it could be diagnostic tests such as a rabies titer, could be, depending on the country, they might want Brucella canis, they might want, other different pathogens testing on the animal prior to travel. So that's going to be documented on the form. And the vaccines, rabies vaccination certificate, rabies vaccination, all the information regarding that, the lot numbers, when it was given, all this, that has to be on the form. There's a lot of things that goes on the form itself. Now the form has to be completed within 10 days of travel, but it's all the information, all the other diagnostic tests can be done prior. And guess what? Depending on the situation, it may take months to get all the test results back, because a lot of these diagnostic tests are not run at routine veterinary diagnostic labs such as IDEX. And I know I'm saying something new to you, Greta, I'm sorry, but IDEX or something like, they have to be like at a certified laboratory for these particular for diagnostics, basically. So not your routine IDEX and Antec, you can't send it there. So all this takes time. going to Paris. Yeah, get started way months in advance. I think the country that it takes the longest to get all the requirements met before traveling, I believe, is Australia, and it may be, I think I was saying, up to 8 months. Get going. If
Wow.
you plan on traveling it, get started, because it's going to take a long time to make sure you read all the requirements of that destination country, and it's not within 10 days of travel get this document signed. No, that's not it at all. So early on in your travel, you're thinking you're traveling, you're planning something. Hey, go to our website, winpets.com. We have a lot of information there. Go to the website for Positive Pet Health Certificates. They have valuable information there. And then also find as we keep saying, a USDA accredited veterinarian, and start letting them know in advance what you're planning on doing, so they can start scheduling things out to make sure you meet all the requirements.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring our friends from Positive Pet Health Certificates into the fold. Let me grab Mary, and we can get this conversation started. Well, hello, Mary and Nicole.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Happy
How
Friday.
are you? Now, before we get started, because we got a lot to cover, and I'm very excited about this because I've got questions, and we had people send questions in, so we'll definitely get started. But I want to read your bio, and then we'll go right into things. So, everyone, Positive Pet Health Certificate is the brainchild of two veterinarian industry professionals who were frustrated by the lack of resources available to USDA accredited veterinarians for completing health certificates in an efficient, reputable way. As pet parents themselves, PPHC's co-owners recognize the stress and confusion vets and pet owners faced when it came to completing international health certificates and keeping up with the constant changes to pet import regulations across the world. Their services ensure accuracy and compliance with global pet airline travel import requirements, while allowing the veterinarian team to focus on patient care instead of tedious paperwork. When you choose PPHC as your pet travel health partner, you are guaranteeing that your pet will have all the veterinarian work and documentation required for the destination, transit countries, and airlines. Let PPHC be your guide to a stress-free pet travel health certificate experience. Everyone, please help me welcome Mary and I apologize. I just went blank. Mary and
Nicole.
Nicole from Positive Pet Health Certificates. Everyone, please applaud.
Thank you.
Oh, I had a brain fart, ladies. I'm so sorry.
Brain fart. Like, dang it.
It's Friday.
And your name's right there in front of me. I was like, oh Lord, it's Friday. Welcome,
Exactly.
ladies. Please tell us about yourselves and tell us about. Here I go again. Please tell us about yourself and Positive Pet Health Certificates.
Thank you. Yeah. So, as you heard, Mary and I started Positive Pet Health Certificates. We were both previously in the veterinary industry. For quite a while, I was a veterinary technician and hospital manager for over 15 years. So I have quite the insight of what it's like as well in the field. And I know being a vet professional, you barely have a lunch break nowadays. And what comes as a priority is emergencies, the clients walking in the office. So when you have something like an international health certificate that you need to do, it can be daunting, and it can be hard to find the time to do that amongst other, things that are going on live in that clinic. So Mary and I saw that, one thing that's really tough with the veterinary profession is just the assistance and having the extra support in a lot of different areas, but especially international pet travel. So that's where PPHC was really born. It's been wonderful. We are now, partnered with thousands of veterinary professionals throughout the United States and Canada, and we are able to really help offer the full support that has been needed, not only for the veterinary professionals, but also for the pet parents. We have a white glove service that we really take pride in and help veterinary professionals and pet parents from the beginning. Like you ladies said, it's never too early to start preparing for international pet travel. We have clients that say, we're not leaving till fall. Is it too early? No, it's not too early. We strongly recommend preparing this as soon as possible. And the beauty about us is we don't have expiration date in our services. We pivot and we keep acclimating as clients travel and progress in their travel plans. And we're there every step of the way. And basically, how it works is with Pawsitive Pet, we have clients that come to us, and then we start assisting based on their country of destination. We can assist with any country in the world. And based on their country of destination and their timing, we have specific travel checklists that we work with the parent and the veterinary professional to make sure it's a nice visual and timeline of what is going to happen for their preparation and when it needs to be happen. And we're there to ensure that everything gets happened and completed in a timely manner to meet the criteria and also the date of your travel for your country of destination.
That's
That's
wonderful.
amazing.
That's wonderful. It's a definite. I'm telling you, you're definitely, well. Always, as a coworker always say, preaching to the choir. I personally have experience practicing, and I mean, as a veterinarian in practice, it is so many things you're doing at one time. So many cases going through your appointments and seeing the animals and the pet owners, and then technicians and everything's going on. And then now I have a health certificate, and there might be a timeline. Oh, they have an appointment for the health certificate, and they want this done, and it's like, oh, I got to change gears. Now I mentally have to now go into a system and try to connect VHICS, which is USDA's, what is it? The veterinary, I'm sorry, I can't blank on that one, but it's VHICS system, or you might have GVL system, and trying to connect everything together and then find the requirements. And it's a pain. So to have someone that can do it on your behalf, that's a wonderful service. Wonderful service.
Yeah. Quick question. So, ladies, okay, so I've got Fifi, and we're going to Paris in the fall. I guess, do you think it's best for, as soon as the person has the idea, to give you a call or reach out to you? Do you start from the very beginning with the idea, or I need to wait until I make the appointment with the veterinarian? So like I guess it's like double Dutch, like where do you jump in there and join me in all of this?
Yeah, so go ahead, Nicole. I thought I saw it in your eyes, like you can take this one.
So we prefer to start at the very beginning. As soon as you say, I want to travel, or I think I want to travel, please reach out. We like to be at the hands in the pot from the beginning to correctly direct everybody, the vet professionals and the client, the correct path to take. It's sometimes harder when we are thrown in the middle of it and now you're backtracking and something may have not been done correctly or something may have been missed. And unfortunately, now you have to repeat it, which can be costly and timely to a pet's travel, whether it's to the EU, UK, or if you start getting more involved, like you said, Australia. Absolutely. We just want to be there from the very beginning. And again, it's never too early to start that conversation, to start that preparation. And then, we have clients, I don't have a travel date. That's okay. What's your ideal travel date? What's your tentative? Let's at least plan for your ideal travel date. And if it changes, we will pivot and we'll adjust as needed. But at least your pet's ready to go at your earliest convenient date that you would like to go.
Okay, that's great. I'll pull up the next question, which is how does PPHC services work and what are the benefits of those?
Yeah, so and Greta, do you still have that flyer we were talking about that you could bring up for us? Perfect. So this just kind of quickly goes through our process from start to finish. Like we said, it's best to really start as early in the process as possible, so that we can take pet owners properly through, the time of starting vaccinations and whatever tests and treatments are going to be needed. This really all starts planning up front. So it starts in the very beginning. Parents will reach out to us. They may learn about us from their veterinarian. We have a network of, like Nicole said, of thousands of veterinary clinics across the US and Canada who recommend our services. So their vet may say, yes, we can help with your international health certificate. We have USDA accredited vets on staff, but, we, want you to work with a travel company like PPHC who can make sure for both our team and for you that all the paperwork is in line and your pet is really meeting these requirements. So they'll start out by contacting us and we will send them a free quote usually within 24 hours. You'll get a quote from us, just depending on, a few factors like how many pets are traveling, what country, of course, are you going to is the biggest one, since every country is going to be different on what they require, how much preparation goes into that, how much the fee for the USDA is to endorse that health certificate. So all of those things are included, as well as, a lot of countries, the health certificate is going to be shipped to you, something that the USDA endorses and then physically mails out. So there's maybe a shipping label included for that paperwork to be overnighted to the pet owner. So all of those things are included in our fees. Plus, of course, you're getting a dedicated representative who is completely focused and dedicated to your pet and your travel date and really keeping those veterinary teams on track. They're, like we've talked about, vet teams are busy doing surgeries and pivoting to talking to pet owners about, their dog who just was diagnosed with cancer. And then you go into another room and you're dealing with a whole another problem. And then you go into a health certificate. And so having it all laid out for you, because somebody who does this every day and knows these country requirements is really a big benefit for, of course, the veterinary team, but the pet owner as well, knowing that I know this is all taken care of by someone who does this all the time. My vet has everything that they need. It's all prepared for them. So the veterinarian is not wasting their time. So all of that is included in their quote with us. And when they decide to move forward, we get started right away by collecting all of those pets' medical records. We're going to get a clear history of where that pet is in their vaccination history. Usually the first things that we're looking for is like a microchip and a rabies vaccine. And that's really going to help us determine where we're starting. And that vaccination history all the way back to their primary vaccine when they were a puppy, we might need to collect all of those. So this is where starting early is really important, because you might need to track down history on your pet going all the way back to when you adopted them or even before. So we'll work with the pet owner to collect that history, and then that's really going to dictate what their travel plan is. And we'll put together that checklist that Nicole was talking about. And that checklist gets sent to the veterinarian and the pet owner. And of course, we're all included on that email so everybody knows what's next and what appointments need to be scheduled, what those requirements are. So we're all on the same page. And then from there, like we said, we've got a dedicated rep who's going to keep you on track and make sure, hey, we're almost at that deadline for the rabies vaccine. Have you scheduled that yet? We'll collect all the appropriate documents and make sure that the required information is there. Dr. Bryant, lot numbers and all of those things you mentioned, that all needs to be collected ahead of time, because by the time you get to the health certificate, we need to be able to just transfer all that information onto that form and send it off to the USDA. So this is where that preparation really comes in, and where we like to plan. We are big planners, type A. We're going to make sure that everything goes smoothly. And that includes sending, once your appointments are scheduled, we're going to work with you and the vet to send instructions for each step of the way. We're always reminding veterinarians, scan the microchip, make sure it's working, at every appointment, because you never know when it might stop functioning or perhaps it's migrated. We need to keep tabs on that. So we're always here sending those instructions and making sure everything can possibly be done at each appointment. And then, of course, when it comes to the health certificate, every health certificate for every country is a little bit different. And so it has to really be filled out exactly correctly, or ideally before it's even sent into the USDA. A lot of the times you hear horror stories about, we didn't get our paperwork back in time, the USDA kept returning it. We can really make the process smoother if we just know exactly how it's supposed to be filled out from the get-go, and the USDA can just quickly process them. So we'll prepare the health certificate for the vet. We send everything ahead of time so that all the vet is doing on the exam day is examining the pet, where they're going to scan the microchip and submit everything online. It'll all be prepared for them. So this is really where we work very closely with the vet teams to get everything submitted on exam day within 10 days, usually. It depends on the country, but on average, it's usually within 10 days, and we'll make sure that that health certificate is endorsed in time and delivered to you before your flight. So we're there from start to finish to make sure you're getting your paperwork on time. And that way the pet owner is not stressed out calling FedEx or trying to get a hold of the USDA and all of that. Like, that's what we're here to do, and to take that burden off the vet teams as well.
That's amazing.
That's my spiel.
As you said, I felt the pressure just relieved from me. So that was amazing. So I know that your company, as a white glove service company, you're basically doing all of the legwork, behind the scene work. But I would imagine, as you mentioned, you need information from the veterinarian, but you're going to do the legwork for him and getting it all put together in the forms. On the pet parent side, what is their responsibility to you? What do you need from them to help make your job easier?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we do really, obviously, the pet parent, we do need, open communication with them to make sure that we're all aligned on when you're traveling. And we have a list of things that we say, okay, here's what we're going to need from you. We need a photo of your pet because we need to make sure that their physical description, we don't get the privilege like the vet teams of meeting these pets. And so we ask for a photo. We need to gather their flight information. There's some basic information that the pet owner is going to have to communicate with us on, but we're here to guide them through that. So we'll reach out, as deadlines approach, to say, hey, we're at this stage now. We need, I'm going to need your flight information. Can you send me your itinerary? Scheduling vet appointments, we prefer to have the pet owners do that, just to work through their scheduling, and it can get pretty hectic before you're traveling, so usually they'll schedule that appointment. But maybe that pet owner doesn't have a vet yet, and so we'll help them find a veterinarian as well. But the pet owner does need to be able to communicate with us and answer those questions that we need in order to make sure that myself and the veterinary team are fully informed on any transit countries you're going to. So we ask all those standard questions of our pet owners to ensure that the health certificate is truly in line with where they're traveling. We have to make sure that the shipping address is correct, and so it's just really verifying all of their information a few times, since especially over an 8-month period. Let's say you really you got started now as early as possible for your trip in the fall. Things can change over that period. You might move out of your home and have a new address. So it's really, we're all working together as a team to keep each other informed and make sure that the pet is ready to travel. But that's why we're here. The pet owner doesn't have to remember all of that. We'll be here to nudge them along and remind them of what information is needed.
Yeah, just something that popped in my mind too, just to remind folks too, as far as traveling internationally, because you were saying if they're connecting or transferring through places, be aware we're talking about international health certificates, but for each country they'll have their own specific form for that country. So say if you're going to Amsterdam, there'll be something specific in going to Amsterdam, but if you're going to Paris, there might be something specific for going to that country there. So be aware there might be country specific international health certificates that have to be filled out. And again, if you're going, depending on if you decide to gonna be you got to go multiple countries, well, you need to check and make sure you have all that documentation completed prior to traveling.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Dr. Bryant, you and I learned not too long ago with another guest that when the pet health certificates are completed, so please correct me if I'm saying this wrong, I have to get Fifi's rabies vaccinations the same day that the pet health certificate is completed And it's got to be put on there with the microchip number, and it's got to be a specific microchip.
Almost,
Do you
almost,
ladies have that?
almost. I think the point was trying to make, and that was Susie with Susie Pritchard with London. She was talking about as far as the purpose of microchipping, and that for in their country, microchipping is, I mean, that's basically it's like a registration for their pet. So until they're microchipped, any other vaccines that happen don't exist until they're microchipped first. So what we have to remember for traveling to these countries, say if your dog or cat has a rabies vaccine and then a month later you're given a microchip, well, that rabies vaccination is not valid. It's only valid after either the same day the microchip was given or after. So it has to be stated that way on the health certificate and every international health certificate. So the microchip date has to be same day or prior to the rabies vaccination being provided.
And that's actually a good point too, Dr. Bryant, is that, I think the hardest thing for most pet parents to understand is the US rabies requirements is not the same as all these other countries' requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the number one thing that clients, we have clients that will get upset about that. I don't understand. Why does my pet need a new rabies vaccine when it's still current?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to meet your country that you're traveling to meet their requirements, not
Right.
the US requirements. Unfortunately, the US does not really have a set standard.
Mm-hmm.
Each state's different with their vaccine guidelines. Each rabies manufacturer has their own set of guidelines. A lot of these countries, like the UK, they have one set of guidelines and that's it. And everyone has to follow the same guidelines, where we don't have that within the US. So again, we look at it so your pet can go into that country and meet their requirements. So, and sometimes you have to booster to meet that
Oh yeah,
requirements.
definite. I've even heard fellow veterinarians saying, "Well, what difference does it make? Why do you have to follow? Why are they asking for this something different?" It's like it doesn't matter what we think. We need to comply with their requirements. Period. So you might think it's silly, but it's their requirement, and you have to comply. You
Right.
have to comply.
Yeah.
And rabies is just not a disease you want to mess with. There's a reason these biosecurity protocols are so strict. The UK is rabies free, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to keep it that way. And so, it's definitely a big risk. And so these are not minor requirements. They are there for a good reason to keep us safe too.
Yeah, definite.
Ladies, we know the UK's requirements. Does that also carry over to their territories like Australia?
No, so every country is going to be different. There are some territory, when you get down into the territory level, it can get very specific. For the US, for example, they're all different. The requirements to go to Guam is different than Puerto Rico, etc. Same for the UK. There are some smaller islands and territories of the UK and European countries that have their own specific requirements, and there's a few that just follow the guidelines of their, the parent country. So it really does really depend. Like Canary Islands comes to mind. They're part of Spain, and they just follow the regular Spain protocol. So even down to the territory level, it could be completely different than the parent country. So you really have to be aware of what the local requirements are.
Yeah. And the same, jump on add on that, Mary. Same as here in the United States. I mean, we have Hawaii, as you
Oh, yeah.
mentioned, Hawaii, Guam, Puerto Rico. The requirements going to those locations are different than being in the continental U.S. You need to be aware of that. So you can't just grab your little Fifi little Chihuahua and decide you're going to fly to Hawaii with them for a weekend trip, because your dog will be denied or will be sitting in quarantine waiting for you, basically. So can't do it that way. You have to look at those requirements of these other states and locales, and not just assume that for the U.S. that the requirements are the same no matter what state you're in.
I'm assuming that, and I'm sure a lot of people we are talking about commercial airlines. Do all of these regulations apply to private pet jets as well?
Yes, we actually one of our partners that we work with is Canine Jets, and They travel from the US to multiple countries, and one of their biggest countries is the United Kingdom. And absolutely, your pets do have to meet the same requirements. The nice benefit about using a private jet is it's more streamlined with the customs approval and check-in because canine jets will do that for you. But there is no exemption with their requirements. You're still required to have the same, requirements, same endorsed health certificates, but it's just a lot more streamlined to enter that country.
Okay.
Great question.
Let's go into our next question. Why is it so important to have correct documentation for each leg of the journey, including customs and airlines?
So it's, as you guys talked about at the beginning, is it's important so that way your pet is safe ultimately and is able to stay with you. If you enter certain countries, like Dr. Bryant pointed out, and you don't have that endorsed health certificate, or that microchip is not picking up or doesn't match, that is automatic quarantine, or you're getting sent back, or some countries will just euthanize your pet. And it's the end of story. And unfortunately, there's no negotiating anything at that time. You're in a different country, and that is their rules and regulations. So it is very important that you have everything needed. And that's what we make. We have a list of documents that you need to be traveling with. We make it clear on all of ours, so you have a reference sheet to be able to go back onto, to double, triple check that you have everything before your travel. The transit health certificates too. Some countries require a transit health certificate, some don't. But if you're transiting through any of the EU countries, if you're going to, an Asian country and you're stopping in Denmark, you need to have an endorsed EU health certificate, and you have to meet their requirements on top of going to Thailand or China. So that is something that we make sure your pet meets the criteria for both countries. You have the documentation for both countries, and you have the endorsed health certificates for both countries.
And let me add something. I love what you brought that up, Nicole, because we're making it seem like it's a document. It's a document, but as I mentioned earlier, there are evidence of, again, if you're in a rabies-free country, they have to be vaccinated and have a rabies titer potentially. Our pets, we have to realize they're animals and they can transmit diseases, and these are diseases that these countries don't have. That's why it's important. So it's more than just say that it's on the form, but it's documenting the fact that these animals are not transmitting diseases in these countries, and that's why it's significant. Guys, remember years ago, I always bring this, I haven't brought it up in a while, but I always bring up a story about the Johnny Depp story years ago, going into Australia, flying on a private jet, and they were denied entry because his dogs didn't meet requirements, and they were threatening euthanasia. And at that point, I think they were trying to use their, celebrity status to kind of go around that, but no, you have to realize this is their country, and you're bringing in animals that potentially have diseases that could potentially impact their country. It's huge. So it's not just a document. It's more than that. We have to realize, we love our pets, we love them, but we have to realize they do transmit diseases, and some of them can be of public health significance or can transmit diseases to other animals in that area. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and you think it's their ecosystem. I mean, it could be devastating and wipe out species of animals if they're bringing in certain diseases like rabies. There's no
Mhm.
cure, and that could eradicate a lot and just be detrimental over to that country. So it is serious, and it's something that everyone has to follow. And we know pet parents get upset when we say, "I'm sorry, your pet doesn't meet the requirements for travel next week." And they'll get upset. We don't make the rules and regulations. We're just abiding by it to ensure that your pet can enter. But we always tell pet parents to do your research before. Like, is this feasible to bring your dog to China next month? It takes time, and if you're going on vacation, ultimately, is it worth doing all that? You can't expedite it. There's certain timelines you have to follow. So you really want to do what's best, for your pet as well as for yourself.
Do you ladies work with clients outside of the United States? Like if somebody was coming from Paris to here?
We don't. We only work with pets traveling from the US to any country worldwide, but we
And
do set
Canada.
up our clients who are going to be coming back with what they need to do to re-enter the US. So they are well aware of the CDC import form that they have to fill out. And if they're coming from a high risk rabies, what else you need to provide for your entry.
Do you mean US and Canada or just US?
For USA and Canada, yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking, like the importance of the vaccinations and stuff like that. I was thinking of animals that might come to the United States, like Pennsylvania is, and I think maybe into Tennessee, that whole range is prevalent with Lyme disease. So if an animal is visiting, I guess I'm wondering, do we I guess, I don't know, my brain's all over the place, but I was thinking, do you guys look up what is a prevalent disease in that area and suggest a vaccination to cover them? Like if somebody was coming to Pennsylvania, would somebody warn them to get a vaccination for Lyme disease? Did I make that sound clearer?
Yes, we don't do that just because we're not veterinary professional, like, veterinarians. To make that, we do tell them always to discuss other types of diseases. We always recommend them to be fully vaccinated for everything for their protection, but we truly, whatever that country requires, make sure that they meet those requirements.
You bring up a
Okay.
good point, though, Greta, too, though, is people who are coming into the US do need to remember that they're traveling into a specific state. So while we do have the federal requirements for the CDC, you do need to make sure that at the state level that you are meeting any requirements for entry. Every state is very different. And so that's where, making sure that you're consulting with the vet before returning can be very helpful. Or just checking in with your, if you are someone who's going from the US to visit another country and come back, check with your vet before you leave and make sure that they should be aware of your state requirements as well. And so that's a conversation that's important to have with the veterinarian when for coming back too.
Another thought too that I think is important, even going to that country, that new country, they're vaccinated and have all the diagnostic tests to go to that country. But if remember, there might be diseases in that country that we don't have here in the United States. So they also need to, upon returning to the United States, make sure their veterinarian is, well, I'm sure they're aware, but just remind them, because say if they come back and they develop some clinical signs of some unique, I don't know, something that is not prevalent in the United States. And they need that reminder, hey, months ago we were in Italy and they have leishmaniasis, and you never know. We don't have that.
Our
We don't
doctors ask
continue
that.
with it. Yeah,
Our doctors ask those questions. Have you
yeah,
been into another country in the
yeah.
last 6 months, et cetera?
It's
So
it's
yeah, the same
it's
applies.
extremely important. Extremely important.
Yeah. Let's see. What are the benefits of using a company like PPHC from a veterinarian and airline or customs standpoint?
Well, the benefits are that we do this every day. We've done almost every country in the world, and our paperwork, I mean, I can't tell you enough how our clients are like, the paperwork was seamless. We have everything that's needed there. We dotted our I's, crossed our T's, and they know exactly what they need to present to these customs. When they check in, they know exactly what they need to show to their airlines as well. So they are always getting that approval and it's going quick and they're getting right in. As opposed to, again, we do this. This is what we do, where certain vets may not be as helpful. They do a lot and say to the owners, do your own research, bring in a pre-filled health certificate and we'll sign it. Where it's a client trying to do that, and it's hard to, even if you're the average client, to read through everything and really grasp that understanding, where we have, specialized documentation showing specialized vaccines and the serial lot number. We make sure the rabies has all of the required information, because again, rabies certificates, I mean, there's one extreme to another throughout the whole country. There's no standard rabies certificates either. And all these countries are requiring the rabies manufacturer, the product name, the serial lot number. They need all of that on there. And I want to say 9 times out of 10, the rabies certificate does not include all that. So we are also making sure you have all that to match the documentation.
With that, is the veterinarian provide, are you, okay, I have all these questions in my head. It's just a matter of getting them out. Okay, so my first question is, do you provide like a guideline form of the things the veterinarians should be looking for and should provide you in return? And then the second part of that is, do you specifically make sure you ask for the microchip number, and do you tell them that they have to use a certain type of microchip?
Yeah, so we're here to do all of that. So we've talked a little bit about how we make a checklist. So everybody is going to have this checklist, which guides both the pet owner and what their pets need, and it has steps that the veterinarian and reminders of what the veterinarian is going to do as they go through the process. But we're also going to, like for countries that require this a rabies titer test, that's a separate visit, and we have to make sure that the veterinarian documents everything correctly and submits that to the approved lab correctly. So we send instructions that literally outline, okay, first scan the pet's microchip, make sure it's functioning, check the rabies certificate, make sure that this is the same number that's documented. So we're really there to hold everyone's hand for each appointment to make sure that all of those steps are done, because it is so easy to just miss one thing. So we're here to make sure that our vet partners are empowered during that visit to know exactly what they need to do. And yes, the microchip is really important. Some countries accept non-ISO compliant microchip. Most do not. And so your pet might have 2 microchips. If you already have the microchipped, but it's the wrong kind, we're going to tell you you're going to need to get a new microchip. And the most common that is required is this ISO standard compliant microchip. And it's typically 15 digits. So that's always how you know right off the bat, if my pet's number is shorter than that, then we may need a new microchip. And even in some countries, when you're going, they may not require that type of microchip, but to come back to the US now, you do need that. So we're going to take all of that into account, knowing that, if this person's returning to the US, they're going to need that. So we're going to make sure that all of those bases are covered as they go in to start the process.
We've been trying to really promote the 15-digit number, since that is the best one to have. Especially this is, Pet ID month. So, I didn't realize that, the United States requires that, but I knew most of the countries required that. And our conversation with Susie, as I mentioned earlier, that microchip number has to be placed the same day that the rabies vaccine is given, or they will not accept the pet health certificate.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like Dr. Bryant said, that's what we tell everybody. It's like you have to, if the microchip wasn't there, those rabies vaccines do not exist. They don't count. It's like they never happened. So you're starting fresh. And a lot of times the US vets are giving the 3-year vaccines. Maybe there's been a lapse in prior vaccinations, and maybe, you have a 3-year vaccine that was the first one given after your pet was microchipped, and you're going to have to redo that vaccination process because it has to be a 1 year. So it's a whole, and that's what, Nicole was talking about, we really want to start the process with you at the beginning so you don't have to backtrack and revaccinate your pet again, if it wasn't done in the proper order.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the microchipping too is that I've noticed that there's a lot of veterinary hospitals, or there's locations where you can get the microchipping. It doesn't necessarily have to be, I guess, a veterinary hospital. I think shelters even potentially put in microchips too. But again, it has to be ISO compatible, the 15 digit for, and all that for international travel. And if not, you're going to have to redo it again. It's funny. I was on searching on Amazon. I'm just blown away because you can buy these microchips on Amazon and anybody can give them. And that's kind of scary. And I mentioned on a prior Facebook Live, saw one where someone injected a cat with a microchip and it was lodged in the spinal column. I mean, they didn't do it correctly, and they just went straight down and lodged into the spinal column. So you want to make sure whomever is giving it is definitely well qualified, a veterinary professional that can give this correctly, and also again that, and make sure it's ISO compatible with the 15 digits, definitely for international travel.
Absolutely, and that it's updated. The information that is up to date.
Yeah.
You know, because just to touch on Pet ID for a second, you know, Dr. Bryant, you were talking with someone earlier who said that he doesn't have his dog microchip because my dog stays right next to me. Well, it's not about how obedient your dog or cat even is, but what if just something just happens and scares your cat or dog and they take off? That is more likely to happen than your dog just sitting there. And if they take off and if they get lost, and you know, now don't you wish you had a microchip? So the microchip is so important, especially when you're traveling.
You're definitely so important for, again, multiple reasons. We're talking, since we're talking about travel, international travel, they're definitely important for international travel, meeting those requirements of those destinations. And then also for routine identification purposes for if they get lost. I mean, it's so big and so huge. Imagine how many dogs, how many black labs, I always say black lab named Blackie, that potentially could be out there. And how are you going to get your dog back? You know, how are you going to get him back? Wouldn't it be better to have a microchip registered and go there? Sorry, that's our blurb, a little blurb for National Pet ID Week, but it is really microchipping all into it. Sorry, we just figured segue into it, but yeah, it's all important. It's all related.
No, it's an important point to make just in general in our everyday lives. And when you're traveling, you know, you don't know if your pet might get away, God forbid, while you're abroad. And then, you know, then you really hope you have an international microchip that can be read, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you touched on this earlier, having a relationship with Canine Jets. Can you tell us more about that? And do you have relationships with other private jets or as well?
Yeah, so we work very closely with Canine Jets. They refer their clients over to us. As you know, going on a private charter is a wonderful experience, but it can also be a costly one. So they really want to ensure that their pets meet the criteria for entry and without any issues, because otherwise you don't have it, you can't travel. And a lot of people who are traveling like that way, you're planning in advance. It's a lot that's involved. So they refer their clients over to us, and we assist and make sure that their pets meet the criteria for entry, is seamless, and we get it all approved through Canine Jets from the UK custom agents or wherever country they're traveling to. So it's a really great thing to take off the owner's shoulders as well, because we do all the communication with Canine Jets. We send them the documentation for approval, the rabies, the health certificate. So really, when you're having that type of service, these pet owners are in good hands knowing I get to travel and I share private jet charter. My paperwork's getting taken care of. I just need to show up for my appointments, follow instructions, and then I'm going to be good to go. So it's nice. We have, worked with other private jet companies from, again, veterinarians that are referring their clients and they happen to travel on other ones. But we typically, have used a lot more of the Canine Jet clients. We've also helped a lot of people travel with the Queen Mary too. So it's not just airplane. We've done a lot of the ships. Which is neat. And we've also had quite a bit of people travel on cruise ships. with their pets, which is always interesting, and a lot of work because they're going to 5 different countries that
Mhm.
you have to meet. Um, but it's been a wonderful experience and learning experience for us too, working closely with the custom agents on the other side of the country that we normally don't work with through K9 Jets. So it's been a great experience.
That's great.
Mhm.
We were able to get some questions on Instagram. 2 of them I got today, so I didn't get a chance to make a banner. I'll ask them first before I go into the others. The first one was, do you provide a pet passport? So I guess after everything is done, do you make a pet passport like what they have in Europe?
That's a really good question. We get that question probably every day, because there's just a lot of different terminology in this industry. And so, yeah, like you said, in Europe, there's a pet passport. In some other countries, there are these actual passport booklets for your pet,
Yeah.
that are really handy. We don't have those here in the US. So your health certificate is your pet passport. That's their entry document into whatever country they're going to. So they're really kind of the same thing. So that's exactly what we're here to help with and provide them, is that health certificate, or then that's really their ticket, their passport in.
Okay. The other question is, do you provide service for any pet? I guess they mean besides cats and dogs, horses, snakes, gerbils.
Yes, absolutely. So, and I'm a exotic pet owner myself. I have my fair share of some lizards and frogs and things, and we love our pets just as much as the furry ones. We have moved parrots. And that's a whole different, pun intended, animal when you're moving parrots, especially. You've got Endangered Species Act involved, and so there's a lot there. We've had chinchillas and hamsters and chickens and pigs and what else, Nicole? What am I forgetting? We've had a lot.
I
So
think,
absolutely.
yeah. We've, yeah, yeah.
That's that's really cool. I bet it provides excitement to your day because it's something a little offbeat from the typical cat and dog.
Yes. Yes, it's definitely very different. Definitely very different with some of the other species. And you can't always travel with them. It's important to say that too. Dogs and cats, most countries do have a pretty standard process for what's required. And sometimes you can't bring your pet pig to wherever, that's it. They may not be considered pets. And so again, what we have here in the US might be very different than the country you're going to and how they classify those animals. So you really have to do your research ahead of time. But we love our pets of all, as many legs or none that they have. So, if they have to travel, then, we definitely are here to help those pet parents who want to help their pets.
Some of these questions I think we might have touched on, but just in case you want to expand. So this one in particular, can pet parents hire PPHC directly?
Yes, absolutely. We have many pet parents that have found us through Facebook, Instagram, a lot of pet referrals. And of course, we can work with any USDA accredited veterinarian in the US. So, absolutely, part of our services too is if you don't have a USDA accredited veterinarian, we can most certainly source one for you that's close by. We have wonderful thousands of vet partners nationwide as well. So, absolutely, you don't need to be referred by a vet. You can be referred by the internet, a friend, and we can help anyone.
And I just wanted to ask, because you said US, but can you also work with people out of Canada? And do you
Yeah,
have doctors in Canada? Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to
Yep,
make sure we clarify this. And you actually
that is
started to
correct.
touch on this question, but a question was, do you have a team of veterinarians that we have to use to get the forms completed?
Nope, we do not have a team of veterinarians in PPHC. But again, if you don't have a USDA accredited vet, we will find one for you. Or if your vet is already USDA accredited, we most certainly will work with them. That's one of the biggest ways we get vet partners is we work with these USDA accredited vets. They say it's life changing, and then they're referring clients out to us because of how efficient and streamlined it is for everybody.
Great. Can they get forms completed for traveling anywhere in the world?
Yes, absolutely. Really, any country. We've done almost all the countries you can imagine. We always joke we've done every continent except Antarctica. One day, someone will need, But
Absolutely.
absolutely, we're here to help with any country.
Is there a country that does not allow pets from other countries to come in?
That's a good question.
Mhm.
I don't think so.
None that I can think off the top of my head.
Only country I can think of that, well, CDC has their restrictions for dogs, cats coming from Egypt.
Yeah.
At one point, I don't know if they lifted it with everything that was going on, but at one point they restricted all dogs coming from Egypt because of them coming and breaking with rabies. They had falsified documentation years ago, and there were some cases where dogs broke with rabies upon return coming into the U.S. and spread like outbreaks and everything with it. Didn't hit the major news, but it did happen a couple times. And I actually think they went through Canada as well and came down, and there were some that were came down and spread the disease, rabies, here in the U.S. And again, the documentation they arrived with was falsified or not valid.
Well, I think that was, if I remember correctly, a lot of that was kind of a driving factor behind these new CDC requirements for dogs to be imported. That's why we're here now. So, exactly. The only other country that comes to mind is North Korea. I don't think they're really allowing people to enter North Korea with their pets. That's probably one.
Okay. Now this is a long one. There was somebody who did their homework. So let's pull this one up. I saw on your site as of January 10th, the USDA announced increased fees. Can you explain why we have to use them? Are there other fees inserted in the overall fee we have to pay you? Well, I would think that we have to use the USDA and pay their fees because they're the governing body, but I figured I'd let you guys answer this.
Yes, that is correct. I mean, you can't, for the countries that require endorsed health certificates, the USDA is the only government body that can endorse a health certificate. So, and there's fees associated with that. So unfortunately, in January, they did significantly increase their fees, which affects, pet travel, but also like the USDA is able to hire more people to work and to get their health certificates back in a timely manner. So unfortunately, it is more of a financial burden, but at the same time, if we're getting health certificates faster and they're able to continue with the growth of the pet industry, it's just like anything else, increasing. Like we said, the other fees that we cover is prepaid FedEx priority overnight labels as well. So if you need to get that delivered for your travel, we cover that FedEx fee.
Well, I went when I saw that, I went on your site and I didn't see much. It wasn't a huge jump in the price that the USDA charged, but even if they did, it is what it is. You know what I mean? So if you want the luxury of bringing your pet with you on for travel, this is just something you have to pay, just like we have to pay tax when we get gas. What you guys are providing is not only everything you're doing hour by hour, but the most important thing you're providing is peace of mind. And if I got to pay you $30 to put it in an envelope and send it to me, it's well worth the $30 to go in an envelope to send it to me, because you just relieved me from time that I have to put into this just for research, because I can't do it until I research what I got to do. Education, I'll never have what you know. And just for efficiency. So whatever you're charging, and I don't even know what it is, it's got to be worth its weight in gold because of the service you're providing. So
Yeah, like we say, we're the insurance policy to ensure that your pet will make it to the country of destination. And as a pet parent, that is worth I mean, when you're paying thousands and thousands of dollars to travel, to make sure you get that pet doggy hotel wherever you're going, and if you're carrying enough to bring your pet, and you're 100% insured that we're going to make sure that happens as long as your pet meets their criteria and you're going to get that health certificate in time. It's a no-brainer for me as a pet parent and for many pet
right,
parents why they move forward with us.
right,
Well,
absolutely.
you got those folks that want to penny pinch or think that they can do it by themselves. Everyone wants to, DIY. I can do it myself, but in this instance of and everything, all the technicality and everything, you need somebody who's actually skilled in doing this
Yeah,
whole process. Who's done it numerous times to get through it, to make it seamless and smooth. You try to do it by yourself, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to miss something. Sometimes,
yeah,
sometimes in life, you know what? We always think that, I'll save money, I can do it myself. But sometimes you got to pay for things, just so that it goes through smoothly. You need to pay for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And when it comes to an animal, a living being,
Mm-hmm.
you just don't want to play around, and I can't imagine the amount of emails the USDA honestly gets from pet parents and trying to help navigate that. And they can only do so much,
Mm-hmm.
so, and vet professionals I'm sorry, they rejected it. We've had horror stories. They rejected it. There's nothing else we can do. Well, we're always thinking of plan A, plan B, plan C. And that's what we tell clients. This
Mm-hmm.
is why we're doing this way. We're always preparing for worst case scenario. FedEx is
Yeah,
delayed. Okay, we're going to reroute it. Like, we are dealing with the logistics of how we can still make sure you get that health certificate due to bad weather or delay and the delivery or delay with the endorsement. We're working with in the background with your vet, FedEx, the USDA to make sure everything's happening and getting those moving parts together.
Yeah, you know what I've seen? I've seen instances where pet owners will leave without getting their documentation endorsed, and they get to the destination and thinking that they're perfectly fine. Like, it's not endorsed. You were supposed to wait, but they jumped the gun because they just figured, oh, I've got this part. I've got most of it, and no, it has to be endorsed in certain situations. I think the only ones that maybe you don't have to endorse the documents for is if it's a military veterinarian that's completing the health certificates or something like that. But that would all
Correct.
depend on the destination country if they allow that to happen that way. But the majority of these international health certificates will need endorsement by USDA, so you can't get around it.
Yeah, and we work with a lot of military families because unfortunate, military vets are so backed up and they're getting these military orders. Hey, you have to move to Germany in 2 weeks. The military vets booked out, 5 months, and we get a lot of military families where we're scrambling to help make it happen. And even with military, you're not exempt for any
That's
rules or
yeah.
regulations. I mean, Japan's the only one that will exempt that 180-day waiting period, but otherwise your pet still has to meet the criteria and you still need that health certificate endorsed if you can't get that from the military vet.
yeah, absolutely. Well, this was such an amazing conversation. We went over an hour. So,
Easily.
Dr. Bryant, is there any last minute things you want to say?
I'm so glad you guys came today. Great conversation with you both, Nicole and Mary. Thank you so much. And we're going to have you back again next year. Hopefully you will expand further. Look, Bark Air needs to be looking at you guys too, and other companies that have, you could say, special services for pets traveling. They need to be looking at you guys too to ensure animals get to their destinations safely and meet those requirements. So glad you're here. I'm looking to hear you guys expanding further as the years progress. Definitely. Glad you could.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We're
Mhm.
honored to be here, and thank you so much again for taking the time to learn about us.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And Mary and Nicole, is there any last minute things you want to say?
I
No,
think we
just
summed
thank
it up
you
pretty
for,
well. I mean, if you
yeah.
want any more information, please reach out. You can see we have social media, and if you are planning on traveling with your pet, give us a try. It'll probably be the best experience you have traveling with your pet. So,
Absolutely. So you can learn more at positivehealthcertificates.com and follow these ladies on Facebook as well as Instagram with Positive Pet Health Certificates, or CERTs, I should say. So, but this has been an amazing conversation. I am so glad we got to have you ladies back. And I definitely look forward to another conversation with you. But for now, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you at our next Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant. Until then, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.